Now, let's say, continuing from my last video, I would like to actually play around with this number a lot, right? So I would like to do some what if analysis. And the goal seek feature is working well, but I have to do it individually, right? Kind of ask it different profit values and then do it one at a time. So if you want to ask it many different profit values, right? How many units would I have to produce at all of these different profits? We actually can make a table instead. And that's what I'm going to do in this video. So we're going to take it to the next step. And instead of just doing a little bit of analysis, we want to expand that and really make it a little bit more robust. So instead of doing it all individually, let's make a table. And we're going to start in this video, we're going to make a one variable table. And then in the next video, I'll make a two variable table with you. All right, so let's make a one variable table. And again, you can read through your text as well here for the general steps. I'm going to focus on our data here and follow along with that example. So the first thing they want us to do is to just give a little bit of headers and labeling here. So we're going to call this break even analysis. Your book would like us to merge cells. What is it? It's D3 to G3. So I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to format my cell here. And under alignment, I can click merge. I can also change my alignment. So instead of doing general, I am going to center this and go ahead and fix that. And then I'm going back to the home feature, and I can also change my cell styles here. So your book would like us to use heading 3 as our cell style. So I will update that. So what I'm doing now is just kind of getting myself organized and setting my table up. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to enter the following labels. So we're going to enter units sold. Moving over, we're going to enter revenue. We're going to enter expenses. And then we're going to enter net income. And hopefully this makes sense that we would have all of these pieces here because this is really what this problem is focusing on, right? Everything is based on how many units we're selling, right? That's kind of the core of our focus is, well, how many units do I need to sell to achieve, so much profit? And your net income or your profit here relates to your revenue and your expenses. So these all three tie in together, right? Our net income is our revenue minus our expenses. So these are our main headers that we're looking at here. All right, they want us to do a little bit of labeling here as well. We're going to use accent to, let's see, 20%. Okay. All right, so the next step to our table is in cell D5, we're going to actually enter the formula for B5. Because that's our core kind of point, right? And then after I do that, going across here, for revenue, I'm going to enter the cell B25. And the reason I'm doing that, if I scroll down, that is where my total revenue is. So I'm going to enter equals B25 here. For expenses, I'm going to use B26, because again, if you scroll down, that's where we keep our total expenses. And then for your net income, I'm using B27. Again, if you scroll down, you'll see that's where we have that information. So we're referencing those totals there. All right. And again, your book would like us to just change the cell styles. And I think we're using 40%, accent 1 here. They would also like us to use the accounting format with no decimal places. So I can just go ahead and I won't change all the formats because they do take some time, but I'll do this table for us and just kind of, update those as we go along as well. All right, so the final thing we're going to do before we create our table is we want to play around with the number of units sold. So we're currently projected to think about selling 3,000 units, but maybe I want to see what happens for different sales points. So I'm going to go from 1,000 to 5,000 in increments of 500 here. So I'm going to type in 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, 3,500, 4,000, 4,500, and then of course 5,000. So I'm kind of trying to see, okay, what happens for each of these different selling points, right? If I sell 1,000 units, what's my revenue? What's my expense? What's my income? If I sell 1,500 units, what's my revenue, my expense, my net income? And I would like to do this in one shot and not one at a time. So once I have this set up, again, your book would like us to just format this. We're going to go ahead in here. I'm going to go into number. Actually, I'm going to write format here instead. And I'm going to use my thousand separator and get rid of any decimal places. All right. All right, so we're all set up for our table here, and now we're going to go ahead and fill it in. So I'm going to select the range D5 through G14. So I'm selecting all the values in my table and just making a nice big rectangle. I'm going to go back up to data. I'm going to go over to what if analysis, and I'm going to select data table this time. So here you have to make a choice. They're asking you where your input data lies, basically. So see how our information is all in a column here, right? I'm looking at the units sold, and the values that I'm focusing on are going down a column. So because we're in a column, I'm going to click column as my input cell. If I had it going in a row, I would click row instead. And then I select the main cell here. So our main cell is this one right here, is D, well, actually, no, it's B5 is the one I'm referencing, right, in D5. So let me select B5 instead here. So that is the main cell that I am referencing, right? That's that changing cell. And then underneath, I have all the possibilities that I would like it to run through. All right, I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to see it start to fill in. And I am going to change the format here. So I'm going to use the format that I'm using here on the left. And again, this format is already set up. So I'm just going to go to cell B25. I'm going to go to my home feature and go ahead and click Format Painter. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to select my cells to format over so that they all kind of match. There we go. And that looks good. All right, so this is my one variable table. And then what we have here is for 1,000 units sold, 1,500, 2,000, and so on. It has already calculated the revenue, the expenses, and then my net income or my profit here. You can see there's the one for 3,000, right? It matches what we originally had. And then it does all the others. So if I can sell 5,000 units, I'm looking at $1 million profit. Whereas if I only sell 1,000 units, I'm losing 700,000. So this is a what if analysis, and it just does it much quicker for us. So if we have multiple things that we want to plug in, instead of doing it one at a time, we can do it with a table. And again, this is really, really helpful. Another thing I want to note here too is that your table will update if you do make changes on the left. So for instance, if for some reason we knew that we were going to decrease the price of the unit, maybe it was going from 1,400 down to 1,250. If I change that on the left, it will update my formulas here, but it will also update that table too, which is pretty cool. So you don't have to redo it over and over again as well. That's another bonus. Is if you do a table, it will continue to update for you. So I can try different price points, for instance, and see how that affects my net income as well. All right, let me go back to the original 1,400 here. All right, so let's see. The last thing I want to show you in this video before we keep going is I do want to show you how to create a chart as well from this table. So I'm going to select, let's see, what am I going to select? I'm going to select D4 to F14 here. Okay. I'm leaving out the net income here. The reason I'm leaving out the net income is because I want to look at that break-even point a little bit more clearly. And the interesting thing about break-even points is that we can see them visually where our revenue and our expenses cross. So your break-even point is when your revenue and expenses are exactly the same, right? So there's no profit, what's going out and what's coming in are the same. So when we graph those two functions, wherever they cross, that's the break-even point because that's where they are the same. So that's what we learn if we, study algebra, right? How to find that intersection of two lines, like that is their break-even point when they are revenue and cost. So I'm going to select here my revenue and expenses, and I'm also going to select the units sold so that it can relate to how many units we're selling. And I want to make a chart here. So I'm going to go ahead and select those. I'm going to go to my Insert tab. Right. I'm going to go ahead to Insert Chart. I'm going to do a scatter chart here, or a scatter plot. And then I'm going to do the one. So this one is just your scatter plot. I want to use lines though, because I do want to see where they cross. I can use it with the points if I want to, or I can do without the points, whatever is easier to see. I'm going to go ahead and select this one. And then, of course, you may want to move this around. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this chart. I'm going to do Control C. I'm going to just delete it for a second, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste it right underneath my table here. I think sometimes it's a little bit easier to do that than trying to click and drag and everything. And then I can resize it as I need to. So again, you can kind of look in your text. They do ask you to resize it and move it, and we can go ahead and change that. They also ask you to remove your chart title. So you can go ahead and, of course, edit this chart as much as you want to. We can remove that title if you find it helpful. I tend to like titles, so I would probably put something like break-even point on here as my title. But I'm just going to follow along with the text. And again, you could, edit all of these pieces here if you want to. I can also double click on the background and choose to fill it in if I want to. So your book does recommend using a solid fill here for the background. And then they would also like the interior of the chart, though, to have a white background instead. So again, you can play around with the different formatting tools as well. We've seen those many, many times, and just, make your chart look as nice as possible. Now, what we see here, see where these two lines cross? That is that break-even point. And it looks like it's about right here. So on the left, you have obviously money, but on this side here is how many units you are producing, right? So where they cross is that break-even point. That's really what I'm looking for. So here I can see that it's in this range here. It's about that 2,700. And if we look back in our notes, we did find that the break-even point was 2,570. So this makes sense. You're seeing that crossing right here, which is at 2,570. So we can see it visually as well. And then again, this is money on the left. So this represents the amount of revenue and cost coming in, but where they cross, that's really what I want to know. I want to know how many units to produce. So that crossing point is that break-even point, which again is just really nice to see visually as well.